Welcome back to Jade's Garage. In the past couple of videos, I was demonstrating the hood hinges on the '68 Mustang known as Jade. I've also done a lot of other videos on this car. If you like Mustangs, Camaros, maintenance videos, I suggest you hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to see more. Alright, so in the last couple of videos, I talked about the Golden Legion hood hinges that I bought years ago from Mustangs Unlimited. I also showed you some packaging issues from CJ Pony Parts and some packaging from NPD, along with some Dynacorn hinges that are now on the car. In the last video, I talked about the hood not having the proper curve to match the fenders, and I was going to address that. And I want to point out that somebody noticed that I did not have all the bolts in the fender. That is critical when it comes to doing adjustments on anything. You want to make sure you have all the bolts in the car so that the panels are sitting in the proper location. There's a reason why I didn't have the bolts in the fender, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. As you can see, I have the fender off of the car. I wanted to show you why I didn't have any bolts in the fender. And the problem is this apron. If you remember, whenever I did the front of the car and I replaced that apron, core support, and this apron, I had issues with the panel that was in here when I got the car. It was held in with bubblegum welds, and the core support was actually pieced together. Well, this is an aftermarket piece. I don't know who made it. I bought this from Mustangs Unlimited, and when I had the fender on the car, these holes, or these locations, are where the bolt hole needs to be. These holes are what's in the stamp panel. So I need to address that. I need to relocate these holes, or relocate this hole in this location, let's say. Well, the panel that was on the car originally was an original panel, but it wasn't from this car. I had suspected, I knew that they had replaced it, but I wasn't sure at that time whether it was an original panel. Well, let me show you. I still have it. This is the front piece. They came off of this car, and this panel had been, like I said, put on bubblegum welds. And had I known that it was an original panel and it was in, moderately good shape, I probably would have saved it. This one, it was already rotted out and in bad shape to begin with. And as I pointed out in the repair video that I did, they have pop rivets holding this together. They overlapped it and put in pop rivets. So the core support had to be changed regardless. But what I've just learned today is this panel was from a '68 convertible 6-cylinder car. And if you'll notice, there's the VIN number. Has a star on the end of it, like it's supposed to. There's the number, and if you look, here's the number again. They double stamped the same number on this apron. I don't know why. I don't know if that's, I wouldn't consider this normal, because even though it has a star, the pattern kind of runs off of the fender, or off the apron. I would think it would be nice and square. I don't know. Maybe somebody can give me some insight on that. Now back to the apron. The plan, as you can see, I cut out these bolt locations from its original piece. I like these better because they have a better recess, and it gives me material that I can cut away from this piece to install the new pieces. In other words, if I was to try to relocate this hole, or this clip location, I would have to cut it, move it, weld in a filler piece to make it work. Same way here. I would have to cut it, move it, weld in a filler piece. By doing it this way, I can cut out that shape, put this in place, and I fixed the problem. Then it's just a matter of blending down the welds and making it look right. So you can see that. Simple fix, really. But that's just one way that you can address some of this stuff, is by saving parts of your old panels. So I'm not going to do much more at this point than cut these out and weld these in. I don't want to make that part of this video necessarily. It's just not worth the time, I don't think, because a lot of people have seen all the welding I do. But I'll get those welded in, and then I'll move back to addressing some hood issues. I know I said I wasn't going to show any welding, but I just want to show you what I'm doing here. You know, as I cut that piece out, I had drawn a center line to where I needed the hole to be. So if you look at where I cut this piece, there was the center line. Here's the new hole. So I'm still tacking this one in, but I'm working on this one. So this was the piece that I cut out. Now granted, it's not perfectly square, but that's okay. I just needed to have a removal, and then I cleaned up the new piece and cut it to match. One other thing I had to do, the drop flange on the edge out here was longer on the pieces that I cut off than it was on the panel that I salvaged. So I had to straighten this out and rebend it to make it match. So now I just need to tack this one in and finish the process. If you're curious, my MIG is set at 2 on the wire speed and B on the heat settings using 025 wire. You know the drill from here. Continue to tack weld all the way around until it's filled, blend it down, look for any holes, refill, reblend, and you're done. So now they're both welded in place, and I have a good location for the bolts to go into. That looks much better. Now the fender is pretty close to being flush all the way through. I think it looks fine. Now, if I understand correctly, and I'm pretty confident that I'm right, at the factory they put some sort of a sealant underneath that fender lip. I didn't research it, so I don't know what the product actually is. I'm sure they sell it. But to be correct, my understanding is there should be some goop coming out of this and kind of sealing that off. Anyway, this side is set. This side I still need to get all the bolts in, but oh, and I also have stoppers in place now on the core support for hood bumpers. So setting this down where the front meets the fender, it's pretty close there, but it still has a transitional gap, let's say. It sits just slightly below the fender until somewhere back here it planes out. So I still need to do some adjustments to the hood. I need to get this fender bolted down and then start making the hood fit the car. I have all the bolts in this fender. I now have all the bolts in this fender, and I want to point something out. This apron I replaced a long time ago, and at the time I believe it was a Spectre or Spectra, whatever it was, and I was not real happy with that thing. So if you remember, I had to massage this to try to get it to fit as well as it does. It looks good, but it's not as good as even this one, where it has a nice clean corner on it. This one's close. Now, here's something else that I want to point out, that now that there's probably better panels available, I wish I would have waited or had the better panel like the Dynacorn one to put in there. If you look at the plane, let's say, of the fender and the apron, you see the curvature there. Pretty consistent on this side. You look at this side, and there's a high point, and it's right about here. This bolt is sitting higher than the others if you look at the plane of it. And what I'm getting at is, if I shut the hood, even though the hood is a little bit low on this side, you come over here and there's a bigger difference. And that bigger difference is right in this area. So just let me put a marker of some sort there to show you. That's the highest point, I would think. Look, I think a lot of the problem is just this apron. It doesn't sit low enough. So I'm going to do an old school trick. I hope it works. Basically, it wasn't uncommon to take a block of wood, and I've done this on fenders, I've done it on doors, you know, and I've shown it in videos where you can take a block of wood and put it on the fender itself and strike it and change the shape of the fender. So hopefully I can do the same thing with that apron and bring that portion of the fender down slightly. Just for a visual reference, I put a paint stick on that section of the fender, so it'll show that it's sitting up higher than the thickness of this paint stick. Let's give it a whack and see what happens. I'm just starting gently. Now it's sitting below the paint stick. Just that little bit has brought it pretty much flush with that paint stick. Better. Now keep in mind, this fender had a lot of body filler on it, and there's still some issues with it, but let me show you how close it is now. Still a little bit high, but now it follows the flow of the hood better. So I think still a little bit of tweaking on this hood to get some of this curve a little higher is going to help a ton. That is much closer to what I have on this side. Big improvement. All right, let's see what else I can do with this. You know, the more I look at it, the more I think I can transition the front section of the hood better than if I try to raise up the center. Because if I bring this down, this planes out on both sides very, very close. Very close. But when I get to the front here, it gets fatter at this drop off where the extension would be. So if I can make this corner on both sides come down a little bit, I think that might be all I need to do. But the problem is, how do you do that? I may end up putting in some blocks right here to stop the hood and then just kind of use hand pressure and try to change that front shape a smidge and see if that works. Yeah, I'm going to give that a shot. And we'll see. Let me show you what I'm doing. I have a couple blocks of wood, and these are just like 3/4 inch chunks of nothing special wood. So I'm going to put one on top of the apron on either side, bring the hood down to where it rests on it, get both sides set in place so the height is the same. And basically all I'm really doing is kind of hand pressing this down to try to change this shape ever so slightly. And it seems to be working. Take this out. And it's going to take some effort to continue to get it where I want it, but it gets closer with every movement. So I can adjust the bumper underneath a little bit, the stopper, get my height where I want it. And it's close. I mean, it's gonna still want to fight some, but that's pretty close. Now I need to get this corner rolled down just a little bit more. I think what I'll have to do is just use the body hammer and just kind of tap it down. And this is where it just takes time and effort, you know. Take your time with it, massage it into place, and it should be fine. But right now, everything is looking really good back and forth. I need to work this corner down a little bit more, but I'll try to show you how it looks after a little more massaging. Okay, I think the hardest part in trying to show you a good angle on this is realizing that the hood, when you look at it straight on from the side and different approaches, looks different in all those aspects. So with this closed down, that is very, very close right now. I'm going to try to roll this corner just a little bit more so it drops in and tries to line up with the extension. And to do that, try not to get too much in the way here. I'm just using a body hammer. Take my time. Just trying to get that roll to look right. So again, you look at it from one angle and it's funky because it's, you know, this is an angle, and of course the plane of the gap, looking at it straight down, all looks different. But this is very, very close. So again, you look at it from the front and it's a different look altogether. This is very, very close, and then, you know, this again, it just has a different look. So, you know, from the side it's great. Still has a little bit of a curl right there, but I think, I'm not sure yet. I'm debating on whether I want to trim off this corner and move it just a hair up so it lines up better with this extension. Have to talk myself into it, I guess. But I'm very happy with how this is fitting now. And again, just a different angle. But this is just a little bit long right here. So, you know how much that bugs me. All these little details need to be right. So, I may have to adjust that. The driver's side is a lot closer. But keep in mind, this fender was not damaged like that other fender. So it's easier to work with this one. This lines up perfect. Very happy with the driver's side. Well, I've made a decision. I'm going to trim this corner off Just enough, because if I take, let's say I take this scale, and I'm trying to hold everything in place here, and I come over and hit, just enough to be bothersome. I mean, I could probably leave it, but it fits perfect on the other side. I want both sides to look the same. So I'll take a sanding disc, shape this back, and then probably add some tack weld so that I have it, you know, solid, and just blend it in. But just a minor thing, but I can't let that go. You know how I am. Now that leaves me enough space. I took off a little bit more, but once I add the tack welds to the edge of that, I can smooth that to match. Now you may ask yourself, why did he blend off material just to weld some more back on? Well, because there's a flange pinched around the edge there. When I grind off that material, it exposes both sides of the flange plus the inner piece for the hood. Now it's all welded together. It's not going to go anywhere. Using a slightly less aggressive disc. I'm happy with that. I think it's looking pretty good. There's only one more thing left to do on this hood, in my opinion, unless I'm missing something. And I've talked about this before, and I've shown it in other videos. And what I'm going to do is put tack welds around the perimeter. At this point, I want to make sure that, again, that the hood sits properly, which it does. And then I'll take a sanding disc and I'll go around the edges here and probably put in, maybe 6 inches or so tack welds. And that'll keep the hood from twisting, you know, in the future. And once that's done, then I can move on to the next phase, which should be test fitting all the rest of the front sheet metal. So let me get these welds in place and we'll see how it looks. So I'm just going to stretch a tape, mark off 6-inch increments, one side of the hood. Much better. Yep. Now, of course, I will blend those welds just a little bit so they blend in, smoothly on the transitions. Probably not that critical, but I like things to look nice, so they'll get smoothed down a smidge. All right, I think that's going to be the end of this particular video. I've test fitted this hood several times. I did some modifications to it to make it fit better. And the only thing really left to do beyond blending down the welds a little bit is modifying the hinges. As I mentioned before, those bolt holes were a little bit off. I haven't done that yet. I still need to blend it and then put it all back together. I don't think that's really that big a deal at this point. You've seen me blend different bolt holes and stuff with my rotary file, so I'm not going to really post that. But that's the only thing I need to do right now. So in the next video, I will do a fitment. I will put on the valance panel, the headlight buckets, the rock guard, as much of the grill as I think I need to put together to make sure everything works. And I think I'll try to see if I want to modify that front or the lower valance, front valance, because I had mentioned it before. The shape of it, I doubt I'll ever put a license plate on it, and I'm thinking if I can pull it off, maybe make it more of a scoop. So I have to look at that and see what my options are. But thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. By all means, hit that like button, leave a comment. I want to thank everybody who uses Amazon. Especially want to thank those who have been supporting me on Patreon. I appreciate that very much. If you're interested in becoming a patron, there'll be a link in the description. You can take a look at that if you like. If not, that's okay. But I appreciate any help that I get to help keep this channel going as it is. Also, there's t-shirts and posters and different things on Teespring. By all means, take a look at those as well. Once again, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. I also showed some issues with the hood and I also commented about the hood for the car needing some extra work. No. I needed the hole to be. Hopefully you can see that okay. Sequence that I showed of this car. I show just for a visual. See ya.